off-grid unplugged cabin ranch. Today's video is going to be all about my solar setup. Start with, I got 6 panels on the east roof of my cabin, and on this side of the cabin, which is the west side, I have 6 more panels. And there's my 4 south-facing solar panels connected to their own charge controller. Each panel is a 100 watt, close to 6 amps, I believe. This is the charge controller I use with the 12 panels, 6 on the east and 6 on the west side of the cabin. Now the 4 panels I have up on the front, I've showed you the 12 I have up on the roof. I also have those 4 out there, right around the corner there, 4 panels there. Those are all connected to this charge controller. Beautiful morning here. And it's about 6:30 in the morning, and I just checked and I'm already bringing in over 110, 115 watts. When they used to be up on that roof there, at this time in the morning, because the sun's so far over that way, they may be bringing in 20 watts. So by the time they start actually charging on there and bringing in over 200, I'm already close to 500 on these. So because of where I live in southern Arizona, I decided it was more advantageous for me to put 6 panels on the east roof, 6 panels on the west roof, rather than having them all face south. Panels I had on the awning for the RV were all facing south, and it worked, but there was just too many hours of the day where I was totally losing energy production. All right, and here's my 12 volt battery setup. I decided to stick with 12 volt. To make it into 12 volt, each battery here is a 6 volt battery. So to make them into 12 volt, I had to, I had to put this cable on there in series, one to the positive and one to the negative post on each battery. So that makes that one 12 volt battery. And then I did that 8 times. I have a total of 16 batteries, but I made them into 8 12 volt batteries instead of 16 6 volts. So then after I got them all connected in series, and I got the shortest possible cables I could, these are 9-inch cables. I ordered these from Windy Nation, along with, well, these are more. Then I also got cables going to the from the charge controller. These are 2-aught cables. And then these are 4-aught cables going from the batteries to the inverter. So you want the biggest ones you can possibly get there. Anyway, like I said, and these are 2-aught cables too. But I connected them all in series by one positive to the negative post on each battery to make them into 12 volt. And then I connected them in parallel from the positive to the positive to the positive to the positive to the positive all the way down. And then I did the same thing on the other side. I connected all the negatives. So that made them into a huge bank. It's 1800 amp hours. Each battery, which is each 2 batteries roughly, is 225 amp hours. So 225 times 8 is 1800. 1800 amp hours. Now usually you can only expect to use about half of that, so that's 900 amp hours, which equates to about, is actually over 10 kilowatt hours, or 10,500 or 10,007. I don't remember exactly, of juice that I can use, which is 10,000 watts of usable. So I'm figuring if I can use 7,500 watts out of them, I'm doing pretty good. As long as I don't use more than that, I'm fine. So I can use 7,500 watts out of them before I charge before I need to charge any of them up. There's my Ruger and my Remy. They're waiting for breakfast. Okay, now I have these batteries, and this gets confusing when you're trying to talk about it. I've watched so many videos on the way people hook this stuff up, and even though I know what I'm doing, I still get confused. So, I can't help it. This is, I don't even know what brand it is. Doesn't say on it anywhere. It's actually a 40 amp charge controller, which only allows me to charge them or not charge them. I can't really, there's not a whole lot of settings I can do on this, but this one was less than about $35, I think. So that's why I got the 4 up there on that one. And I got them connected to their own DC breaker, so I can turn them on and turn them off. And I got that connected to the panels. These two are for the panels, these two are for the batteries. You always disconnect the panels first before you disconnect the batteries, so I can turn that one on or off as I need it. And here's the centerpiece of the whole system. It's my classic, Midnight Classic 150 charge controller. It's actually a 96 amp charge controller. See, I'm already bringing in 130 watts. Like I said, it's barely, well, 635 now. And then it's also connected to these two circuit breakers. The one on the right is coming in from the solar panels to the charge controller. And from the charge controller it goes out that circuit breaker to the batteries. And there's the 2-watt cables I have that I showed you outside. And those all go through some holes I got in the wall. Here's a 200 amp fuse in the inverter line. These are the 4-aught cables. These are the 2-aught cables. So I tried to get it, I got the biggest I could, other than going with, I don't know if they make any bigger than 4-aught actually. And I moved my inverter inside the house. It just did not like the heat outside when I had it out there in the battery box. So I moved it in here. The reason I put it out there to begin with was because I didn't want to listen to the fan. Well, since I moved it in here, I've not heard the fan on this kick on once. But this is a Ames power inverter, 2,000, 4,000 watt. And the biggest load I ever put on this would be for my toaster. Other than that, I usually try to keep my juice draw from it less than 1,000 watts if I can. My biggest continual draw on it would be from my refrigerator, which draws about 90 watts. So the way I got it figured out with my battery bank, I can run that refrigerator for 100 hours or 4 days solid with no sun, no power coming in at all, and I would not fry my batteries. Now, the refrigerator doesn't draw that much power continual, so it'd actually be longer than 4 days. So, and then here's the switch for the Ames inverter. Now, because I'm using Trojan batteries, they have their own designation on what they consider to be a full charge and all that sort of stuff. So on Trojan T105s, 100% charge is 12.73. Now, I've not gotten these anywhere close to below 12.5, so I'm still keeping them at 80%. And then the bulk charge, which is when I charging as much as it can. We'll go up to about, right now I have it set on 14.7. That's one nice thing about this charge controller is you can change any setting on it you want. So after it's done filling them up as much as it can, and which is like driving down the freeway with your foot on the gas pedal to the floor. Then it goes into absorption mode, which is kind of like coasting up to a stop sign or coasting or whatever with your foot off the gas, but still moving. That's not on here, but when it gets to 14.8, it will go into absorption, and it will stay in absorption for probably about 2 hours, and then it will go into what they call the float mode, which is like sitting at a stop sign with the engine running. Just barely keep, the gas is just barely going in to keep the engine running, but it's not working. So that's what float mode is. And it will get to about 13.5, 13.3, it'll stay in float mode, which is basically just keeping the batteries fully charged up, topped off, everything else. So if I'm using something that draws 250 watts, it will be the charge controller will be putting in 250 watts. If nothing is on, this will go down to 0. 0 watts going in, it'll say it's resting here. This was, aside from the batteries, this was the most expensive single item I got. I think this was about $590. Like I said, I mean, I have so many settings on here, it's unbelievable. But the nice thing I like is that I can keep my batteries from burning out or undercharging. That other charge controller I have out in the battery box will only turn on and off when it gets up to a certain charge. That's it. This one will step it down. Like I said, it'll go into bulk up to 14.7, whatever, and then it'll slow it down in absorption, and then it'll slow it down even farther when it gets into float. That one out there doesn't have that. It's either on or off. So, and I only can turn it off at one setting. So right now I have it set on 13.8, I believe. So that when the batteries get up to 13.8 or above, that one shuts off. That's it. That's all I can do with it. So, and that, like I said, that one out there costs 40 bucks. This one was 590. But I'm keeping my most expensive component to the solar setup safe. This is kind of like insurance on my batteries to keep them running good, running safe, running strong. And also, part of the reason I got this is it's made in the United States, and it has a 5-year warranty. That charge controller in the battery box, I wouldn't even have a clue what to do with it if it broke down. I mean, there's no number I can call. There's no customer service. There's no way I can return it. I'm sure it's made in China. So, like I said, and I've already replaced this once. After I had the original one for about 4 or 5 months, it started acting a little funky. So I contacted the company and asked them what was wrong. What can I do to fix it? And their first response was, "We'll send you out a new one." So, like, you can't do any better than that. So when they sent me a new one, I hooked it up and then I nailed the old one back, and they paid the postage. So I definitely saved my money right there just from like I said, the first one was just acting a little funny. It would charge way up to what it was supposed to, and then it dropped slowly down to 0, and then it would charge way up and drop back down, and way up and way down. And it would do this all day long, and I could never figure out why. So, but the way the solar works is the electricity gets converted in the panels, and it comes in on these wires up to the circuit breaker right here, and then it goes into the charge controller. And then you notice I have everything grounded out. There's ground wires running down, and it goes outside to a big long metal pole I had pounded into the ground. And then after it goes to the charge controller and it does what it's going to do, controls how much charge is going into the batteries, it comes out and these wires through the circuit breaker into my 2-aught cables going down to the batteries. And then it charges the batteries up the way it needs to, and then it comes out of the batteries in the bigger cables to my inverter, and that changes it from 12 volt to 120, 115, whatever you want. When I have the air conditioner running, it's still running, or still generating 115 volts at the outlet. So, and then I got 2 extension cords plugged into the end of it. This particular model I can't hardwire electrical cords in, so, and those are going where they need to be. This one here goes to the refrigerator, and this one here goes to the air conditioner. And then I have power strips off of those going to the TV and to lights, and that's really all I have here. This is a Midnight Solar Classic sizing tool. You can punch in your own parameters here, down to how big the modules are, all the figures and numbers and stuff that are on the back of the panels, how many panels you're going to put in a string, how many strings you're going to have, and then it'll total it up. So that this is the way I have mine. Those are all the numbers off of the back of my panels. So I ended up with 12 strings, and then I click Submit Parameters. Those are the only things I can change. And then it brings up this, which shows the total of everything. It shows how much power it'll bring in, the maximum operating voltage, which, because I have the 150, I can bring in 150 volts. With the 200 is 200 volts, and the 250 is 250 volts. But the weird thing is the bigger the charge controller on the volts, the less number of panels you can have. So the most I can have with my setup on a 12 volt system, because like I said, I got this all set up nominal battery voltage 12. If I jump that up to 24, that would double all these numbers. So because I have the 150, I hope you can read this. It looks a little bit fuzzy on the screen, but I got the proper lens in there. Anyway, as I said, it shows I can put maximum allowable wattage with this classic and 12 volt is 1325, and I'm only bringing in 1200, and then it'll tell me if it's all right. So this is really handy. You got to go to midnightsolar.com, and you can type in all your information there. You can get those numbers off the back of or the website of just about any solar panel that there is, and it'll help you figure out what it is you need to do. And here's a complete price list, as close as I can get it. I don't know if that's including taxes and everything else. Some of it is, some of it isn't. But the solar panels is about $1,440. I got some of them for $95, some of them for $82. So I averaged them out about 90. The batteries came to about $19.20. They're actually $114 each, but I'm sure there was tax on that. So, you know, and then the charge controller was $590, and all the cables I got from Windy Nation, which was 11 pairs of 9-inch, 1 pair of 12-foot 2-aught cables, and 1 pair of 12-foot 4-aught cables, about $420. The Ames power inverter was $335 plus, I don't know if I paid shipping or tax or what on that. And then the breaker boxes, grounding wire tools, connectors, solar panel cable, MC4 connectors, and a 40 amp charge controller was another $200. So the grand total is about $4,900.